Hi everyone, welcome to Technology, and today's review is with the Orskey S800 Dash Cam. This is the second iteration of dash cams from Orskey, the original being the S680. Unfortunately, there is no information regarding what has changed and what has been improved on this dash cam, and I did not own the S680 to be able to really comment on the differences. Despite the fact that this is a newer dash camera, it does leave a little bit of questioning regarding how new this is given the predated technology and the resolution. And the first thing we're going to talk about is what's included. In the box, you will get the suction cup mount, which is quite sturdy and sufficient. The camera itself, a charging cable that's USB, and a cigarette lighter charging cable that does not have a separate USB port, so you cannot charge another device at the same time. It also comes with the rear view camera, which is in this giant bundle of wires, which I have recently removed after I did my testing. The build quality is actually quite good. It seems like it's made of hard plastic, or I don't think it's metal, but it feels like metal. The buttons are very tactile and give you good feedback regarding pressing them. And as you will note, I actually have this plugged in right now so that I can walk you through the camera and show you some of the options if needed. The lens does not move much once it's mounted, and I don't think you really need to worry about anything about this camera falling. It's not too heavy, but in comparison to another dash camera I have called the Yi Dash Cam, it is a little bit heavier, but definitely better built than the Yi Dash Cam. The wires are fine, but there's one thing you should note is that if you do not use the included cigarette lighter without the additional USB port, you cannot get the rear view camera to record anything. In other words, if you are using a USB splitter where you split a port, your cigarette lighter port, with two USBs, you cannot use the rear view camera. This is kind of a nuisance because if you do want to charge another device, you'll have to find another cigarette lighter or another port to use. This screen is 3 inches across in comparison to the Yi Dash Cam, which is 2.7 inches across. The Yi Dash Cam is a little thicker. This one is a little wider, but given the protrusion of the lens, they're both about the same width. This lens is silver in color, which makes me question the design choice because it reflects the sun and sticks out significantly when you're driving. Not to mention the Yi also does the same thing given that the whole body is silver. These dots here are actually lights, and not very useful feature because if you have this inside your car, the lights will reflect off of your windshield and directly back into your recording and reducing your image quality. And so I get that they wanted to allow for lights to perhaps relight the path in nighttime driving. It actually works opposite that. Next thing to discuss is the resolution. Here we will go into the settings. The resolution tab has 3 settings: 1080p at 30 frames per second, 1080p, which is actually 1440 by 1080, not true 1080p, and 720p. Given that this is a newer camera, that's quite limited, and in comparison to the Yi Dash Cam offering a 1080p 60 frames a second and also a 2034 by 1296 30 frames per second, and being an older camera, this is definitely lagging behind. This is using a Sony sensor, but there's not much information regarding what kind of sensor. The Yi Dash Cam does not give you any information either, but the Yi Dash Cam is f1.8 aperture. This one is unclear. To be completely honest, this is not the best image quality. I have not reviewed too many dash cams, but in comparison to the Yi Dash camera, this is severely lacking. While I appreciate the fact that you also get a rear view camera here, the rear view camera is also significantly lacking in terms of resolution. I don't believe it's actually 720p. I think the maximum is 480p and looks very grainy. It's not very usable image quality if you ever want to pull a license plate unless the car is very close to your camera's view. This also has a photo mode, which the Dash Cam does not have, which is nice to have, but you actually have to manually press the photo mode, and I don't think any driver should really be taking their eyes off the road to take pictures unless there's an emergency situation, and at that point you're likely in a panic mode and not thinking about pressing a button to take a picture. You may reach out to your phone to do that. The recordings on this are actually .mov, and in the Dash Cam they're H.264 codec, which is a better and newer codec. This camera also has HDR. I tried it with the HDR option and really could not see any significant differences. You can use you can adjust the settings for exposure as well, which is not allowed in the Dash Cam, but really if you set your exposure value to 0, I think you're fine. The field of view is written as being 170 degrees. The Dash Cam says it's 165 degrees. In real world tests, the Dash Cam is significantly wider and you see a lot more while driving than you do on this. If you look here, it's actually quite limited. You get the box, but I don't think this is 170 degrees at all. The Dash Cam seems to be 170 degrees. Now to talk a little bit about other features. The rear view camera, once plugged in using this HDMI cable into this HDMI port, it's actually mini HDMI, not full HDMI. Once plugged in, creates a picture-in-picture here, and so you can see both cameras. But it's important to note that the recording is actually two separate recordings, two separate files. So you have a rear view camera recording and a front camera recording as separate files, and you can use them as you wish. It's not picture-in-picture, which is a great feature. This does not have any Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, and you cannot use any phone or apps to pull the videos off. You actually have to remove the micro SD card and plug it into your computer or your phone to do it. The Dash Cam in comparison has a great app, and you can connect it using Wi-Fi, never have to pull the camera out or the card, and simply remove the recordings that you wish. You can even change the settings using Wi-Fi. Here you have to use the buttons, which are fine because the buttons are, again, quite tactile and easy to press. This also has a parking sensor. The parking sensor is activated using the rear view camera, and once plugged in to your reverse light using this red wire in the reverse light, once you activate your reverse gear, you get to see a parking sensor on this. I was not able to fully use and test this function because the wiring for my car was a little bit difficult. I was able to hack this in a little bit. What I did is I stripped the wire and I jammed it in between my reverse light bulb, and it did work. Unfortunately, with the hatchback and me not wanting to screw this in, it did keep falling. But it is a good feature for cars that do not have a reverse camera, and is a good retrofit. This also has a G sensor, which detects motion. I was not really able to test it because this sensor is incredibly sensitive. As I had it laying on my desk here, every time anything moved, even if we were not at the desk, it would turn on, and it got very frustrating, even though the setting was set to low here. There's also in, which I think they actually meant to be medium, high, and then off. This sensor is used to detect any motion in your car if the car is off, so that the camera can start recording. Nice feature is that it has a battery, and the battery lasts quite a bit to do a quick recording. But again, I was not able to test that feature completely because the sensor is just so sensitive. This license plate option here allows you to enter an option, a license plate, but I don't really see the point in that. Date stamp, as simple as it sounds. Loop recording allows you to choose how many minutes each file is created, between 1 to 3 minutes, or loop recording can be off and it'll stop looping so that it won't rewrite files. That's the whole point of a dash cam, is to allow you to loop files and rewrite over old ones unless you need them, and you can pull them off before it starts doing that. Recommended to use a high endurance SD card. I have had a SD card, a regular one, fail in the past on my E Dash Cam, and since I went to a high endurance card, I've been good, knock on wood. The microphone is fine. I actually recommend that you turn off the microphone because in the event there is an accident, you do not want any specific recording to actually be used against you, even if there was nothing that you were doing wrong. If music was if your music was loud, or if there was a lot of noise or commotion in the car, that can be used against you as distracted driving. So I would recommend that you turn off the microphone on all your dash cams, not just this one. Next, I'll touch a little bit about the rear view camera. These are lights, and I don't really see the point on having these lights because they also reflect off the windshield and right back into the recording, reduces your capture and gets in the way, is distracting. So I would definitely recommend that you kind of cover these because you cannot turn off the flash on this one. In the regular camera, you can turn off the flash. The camera quality on this camera is not very good. I think it's 480p, as I may have mentioned already. It uses this micro HDMI to connect, and it's important to note that you don't actually need to connect it to your reverse light to record. This, once plugged into the HDMI port and using the cigarette lighter charging cable, this will always be recording. The only time you need to use this parking sensor is to get the parking image on here so that the camera knows you are reversing and will show you your parking features. It's essentially your metering and measurement scale. It's not as good as built-in OEM reverse light, but it's sufficient in case you want to retrofit an older car. It's not the best build quality, and I don't think it's waterproof, despite the fact that they allow you to mount this outside and some license plate. I can't really comment on that. It doesn't seem like there are many seals for water to go through, but buyer beware and mount it outside at your own risk. This one, the actual camera, is definitely not waterproof. There's holes for the recordings, and which makes me baffled as to why they included these lighting, because it would reflect on any windshield once mounted. Stability is good once mounted. There's no issues. It's just a simple screw, screws in, suctions in. The sticker I didn't even remove, and I had no trouble with this suction cup working well. Build quality has been good. I think one of my major concerns was the actual nighttime footage, and as you will see in the recordings a little bit later, the nighttime capture was severely lacking. And given that there's significant refraction from light as you drive, there's really not much you can capture. It's even hard to see road signs on the top, which are completely lit up. Definitely not worth it for trying to capture license plates at night unless the car is very close to you and there's a lot of light. But nighttime capturing, this is only limited to capturing events directly in front of you or directly behind you and not much farther. Price is $79 Canadian on Amazon on this one. I was able to buy it for $59, I believe. And for $79, I think this is just too much. Like, it's sufficient because it is a camera, it gives you a recording, and if you all you really want to do is just record your driving, both the reverse and the front, it's definitely enough because you get the whole package for less than $80 Canadian, which I believe converts about $50 US. For $50 Canadian, I think it's a really good deal. You are getting a lot, and for most people's purposes, it's sufficient to capture your recording while you drive. If you're using this for commercial purposes and you're doing long distance driving in a cab perhaps, I think you want to go with something better that allows you to really capture license plates and better night vision. This night vision just is not up to par. However, that being said, for the same price point, I would still recommend using the Yi Dash Cam or purchasing the Yi Dash Cam. I've had it for 2 years now and definitely been happy with it. It's not perfect, but for around the same price range of $50 to $60 Canadian, I would definitely recommend the Yi Dash Cam. If you do want rear view recording, then this is really a good option to go with. All in all, out of 5 stars, I would give this a 3.5. It's well built. The screen is great. It has your basic features. It does give you a rear view capture. It has a nice picture-in-picture mode, so you can see your rear view as well, and parking sensor, so it switches directly to the rear view and you can see yourself parking. But all in all, I think for the same price point, I would recommend a Yi Dash Cam instead of this. Next, you will see some samples in comparison with the Yi Dash Cam side by side. Here we do a side-by-side comparison. On the right you have the S800, and here's a capture from a license plate directly in front of the vehicle. It's quite clear during daylight. And on the left side we have the Yi Dash Cam, and as we continue you'll see that the Yi Dash Cam has a significantly wider angle, and the cars on the right and left you'll see more of them despite the same recording angle. The dynamic range on the Yi Dash Cam is also better. If you look at the sky, you'll see more blue and more of the sky details versus the Orskey S800, where the sky is pretty much all completely washed out and there's a yellower tinge to the recording. As we approach, here's another angle so we can compare the license plate capture for the S8 or for the Yi Dash Cam. Unfortunately, it's not a direct comparison because there is a license plate here and it's in the shadow, but you can still make it out relatively okay. No significant issues there during daylight. It's important to keep in mind that the Orskey S800 looks significantly better on the actual dash cam when it's recording. So when you're in the car, the S800 looks way better just because the screen resolution is significantly better than the Yi Dash Cam screen resolution. But when you actually pull the recordings, it's not necessarily the same kind of comparison. The S800 here, again, you'll see there's a lot more refraction from the light. It's a little bit yellower tinge to everything. Some colors are a little bit washed out. Here we zoom in on moving license plate, and it's very difficult to ascertain what this says at all. Perhaps if it wasn't moving or if it was ahead of us, it would be a little bit different, but as you can see that you could not really make out any license plate of a moving vehicle there. That's not to say that the sole purpose of a dash cam is to only record license plates. You want to record events as well, but it's important to still capture the detail of a license plate in case there is an accident and somebody leaves the scene of the accident. Our comparison now moves to the Yi Dash Cam with the same license plate details, and the result is similar. There's not much detail captured here, very difficult to ascertain what the license plate reads, and I think it has more to do with the wide angle of the Yi Dash Cam and not necessarily the resolution. The resolution is a little bit higher on the Yi Dash Cam. Than 1080p, I believe is 2440p, but I can't remember exactly. Here on the Orskey S800, you'll see a night shot, and to be completely frank, the image quality is not very good. There's a lot of refraction from the light sources of the vehicles ahead of us. There's a lot of blurring. There is no detail in any of the signage or the texts. Really all you can see is just blobs of vehicles with their front or rear lights. You'll see some signage from the road here, and those signs are incredibly large, and if they're not very detailed, you can't really expect to capture much license plate detail here. So we're not even going to zoom in on any of the license plates because it's kind of a futile attempt. Now with the Yi Dash Cam, you'll see the colors are a little bit better. It's still not the best quality, but there's not much reflection or refraction from the light of the vehicles. The details are a little bit better. You'll see the signage is easily legible. However, I did do a review of the video and I was still not able to really see license plate details. You could do the guessing game and try and determine what the license plate is, and hopefully that scenario never has to happen for you. But it is still something to note when you are purchasing a dash cam. Here we continue with the night shot and move to a recording of the actual cameras as we're driving, so you can see the screen resolution. It's very difficult. There's a lot of shake, but I tried my best to capture your view as you're driving. The Orskey definitely has a better screen than the Yi Dash Cam. So as you're recording, it may seem like the S800 has a better image quality, but once you pull the image again, it's not necessarily the case. Here we do the same kind of comparison with the daytime view of the driver. It's difficult to see, but the Orskey is a little bit of a brighter screen, and it's definitely larger than the Yi Dash Cam. It's also much better built, as discussed earlier. It's not very important for the driver to see what is being recorded at all times, just more so when setting up the camera. It's more the driver needs to know that it is recording, and I think it's a little bit easier on the Yi Dash Cam because the red recording light is a little bit larger than that on the Orskey. The Orskey also has a little bit more shake in the mount than the Yi Dash Cam, but nothing significantly noticed between the two in terms of video shake. Now, I also wanted to show you what the reverse cam looked like, despite the fact that I had a lot of trouble getting it to record. But this is the reverse camera on the Orskey. As you can see, the quality is not the best. I don't even think it's high definition, but it is sufficient to capture the events that are occurring behind you, but not necessarily to capture license plate detail if you're moving. When you're stationary, it's a little bit better, and you'll likely be able to get a license plate just by virtue of the fact that the camera is going to be closer to the license plates of the vehicles behind you. This has been a review of the S800 Orskey Dash Cam on technology. Thank you for watching.